Center Heist Productions. It is April 26, 2024. Please hit the likes and subscribes down below in your right-hand corner. Muchly appreciated, trying to grow the community. Now, this is exactly what it says, except I'm even going to have to extend this series longer because I'm going to start part 2 off with Laval's forwards. And then part 3 will be Montreal's forwards. So have to make 2 parts of the forward group. I just can't get it all in one. There's too much to be said. All right, so we're going to start, and then this should be the shorter of the 2. Really, we look at Montreal's situation of forwards for the future. I get a kick out of people saying, I hear, and again, this is a Craig Button thing, and I love the guy, but this is one thing I hate when guys like him say we're so stockpiled. No, we're stockpiled on defense for the future. That's where we're stockpiled. Are there talented offense players in Laval? Yes. But are they professional at the NHL level? No. So you can't count us stockpiled for when you're trying to build for the future. Because unfortunately, at the beginning of the season, when we started off, there was only 2 hockey players on that Laval team that had a shot at being a part of Montreal's future, and that was Roy and Heineman. Roy managed to secure himself a position in Montreal. Heineman didn't grab onto the horns, and something's not been right with his game since he had those back-to-back injuries, and maybe he needs that psychologist Armia ran into to get him back to playing well, because he's big, he's strong, we know this. His forechecking was his bonus. He showed that he was average, so I almost would have rather seen him up there than Pinard and Yolonen, just to let us see if he would have come on. However, they didn't do that. But he hasn't come out of that hole, and he's got a big shot. He's exactly what the doctor ordered to have in your system, but he hasn't jumped. He hasn't grabbed it. He hasn't shown the effort, the heart to want it. And that's what he's got to grab. And I do think this up-and-coming summer will be the final synopsis on whether he makes the Montreal Canadiens in their future at all. I honestly think he's running out of time. But good on Roy. Roy gets it. So these were the only 2 positives in Montreal's forward group. And other than that, it's a sad story. I'm sorry to say this. Yeah, there's talent down there like the Sean Farrells. But Sean Farrell's another Charles Hudon. They're at that level. They're too small. He showed how fragile he is. He's got talent. It's not enough. Charles Hudon had talent. He just didn't have the rest of the ingredients to get him over to the top. And at best, Sean Farrell is probably your next positive, other than Elias Anderson, who wasn't given a shot and was a veteran. And he's probably off to Sweden now, because that's what was in discussion they were looking at. And he's probably got a little bit of, bitter taste in his mouth because he never got the shot. He probably thought he was going to get a shot in Montreal. I think he should have had a taste of it at least when you put up White up there and all that. Come on. You're not going to give Andrew. I don't get that one. However, things like that happen. So he's probably gone. He was the only other positive other than those 2 guys. And then, like I say, other than, Heineman and Roy, Sean Farrell was, out of the rest of them, was the guy, him and Mysak is gone, got traded. So Sean Farrell, those guys, they're just too small. They're just too small. And the injuries were there. At best, you trade him in a package. Maybe he can have a chance to work on another NHL club. He doesn't fit in Montreal, that's for sure. I don't think he's NHL material myself. I think he's perfect for the AHL. I don't even know if I think that's just his peak. That's my thought. But I don't even know if that's the case, if he's got the durability. And that's where it stands. So really, I'm going to just list up. I am not even going to put these guys. Normally, I was going to write their names down through this process in a list. But there's nobody noteworthy on that offensive group's roster in Laval that is worthy in my books. And to just write down Roy and Heineman is kind of a waste of time to make the effort, because the rest of them just don't have it at NHL level. So we got Philip Sendercast-Quist. Mike Sick was traded. Sean Farrell at best. he's an AHL player, but I don't even know if he could stay away from injury at that level. He reminds me a lot of Charles Hudon. I just don't see him. He's not a Hab, that's for sure, of the future. Then we got Durando, in again, that's a nobody. I think Lagar got traded, I believe, in a trade. Anyway, he's either way nothing to worry about. And then, like I said, the only guy on the roster other than Wall was Heineman, and he's got to find his groove again. And then there's Bork, then there's Millet, then there's McKay, Boyer, and then we have Novak, Yermeko, Simoneau, Davidson, Condotta, Geniac, Perot, and of course Elias Anderson and Stevens and Kidney Riley. And Kidney Riley is really the one I think has a real outside shot because he didn't live up to the potential we thought he would be. One of the guys that could be a possibility. Doesn't look like NHL material, but maybe he just had a bad season. Maybe he grows. He might have an outside shot, but not worthy to write notes of anything special. Now, Geniac, Condotta, and Davidson and Stevenson, these might be guys that you could throw into Montreal's fourth line for depth, but they're AHL players. But that's at best, just to fill in voids. So that's really it. There's nothing promising to talk about there. And that's why I get a kick out of these guys saying our cupboards are full. No, our cupboards are full on defensemen. We're going to have a great defense in Montreal, one of the top defenses in the future. We've got nothing on offense coming up. We've got 4 guys now that will be interjected, 5 guys that will be interjected next year that are notable, but they're not notable for this season because they're going to have to play a year in Laval, the guys I'm about to talk about. That's going to be Florian Jacki, Beck, Tuck, Kapanen, and Messar. Now, out of all those guys, Messar has the ceiling that looks like it's the highest. Maybe he's one of those potential. Could he be a top 6 player in the future for Montreal if he's insulated? Because he's got playmaking abilities that are quite impressive that he shows a lot of signs of. But his size bothers me. But he is next year when I think a full year in Laval, maybe he might have a shot in Montreal. Then we get to Beck, same thing, but Beck to me at peak is definitely third line center material. That's his peak. I don't like his size, and he seemed to taper off as the season wound down, and there's a reason, and I don't know what it is, why Team Canada seemed this was the perfect guy to be the captain of Team Canada this year. There's a reason why they held back from that. Either they seeing something that we didn't know yet, or he's already at his top level. So for me, Beck's still another one. Next year he'll have a shot, but he's got to play full year. Like I say, we'll be talking about that next year this time. He needs a full year in Laval and see what happens. So, but he's one of the ones next year those two should inject the lineup. Florian Jacki's got a lot of positives. He brings the size, and for a guy that we weren't looking at, we were looking more for toughness. He's showing he definitely is a unicorn. His skill level from what he did this year in the juniors was quite impressive. So if he can muster that together, to me, next year after he has a year in Laval, he might be the perfect answer for a fourth line winger for me. Tops third line winger, but I see more so fourth line winger. And why not have a bruising line? And that's a perfect answer. So there's another guy. So that's 3 guys that could possibly make the team after next year. Then you got Tuck, who brings size, like Florian. And you got Kapanen, who brings size, like Florian. Only problem is with these two, we haven't seen enough with Tuck. We've heard a lot of good reports on both of these players coming out of the respective leagues. Him coming out of Tuck coming out of the States program, and Kapanen coming out of, I believe it's Finland's program. So the great stories. They got some size, and that's a positive because that's what Montreal needs. We don't know this. We don't know when you get into overseas talent, what that conjecture of the transfer of translating into North American ice and style of hockey translates to. So that's where there's so many unknowns with those two in that regard of where their skill level is. Uh, Although now, mind you, Tuck was in the States, so I'm talking kind of Nassar as well there. But anyway, we don't have enough out on them talent-wise on Tuck and Kapanen to know they got the size. If they can bring talent and then that can peak up, they could possibly, to me, be, again, fourth-line players that could inject into Montreal, which would be a nice thing. But those are the only five, and they're not on this year's roster. Laval had only two guys, Waugh and Heineman. Waugh jumped on his chance and has, to me, claimed a third-line spot in Montreal. Heineman, yet to be seen, but if he doesn't jump on it soon, he's going to miss the train. Those five will be thrown into Laval, and what will they be promising guys? Because the other players on this team, on Laval's roster this year is just nobody with that talent level on the forward group. All their talent's on defense and in goal. Sad. But that's why Montreal is not loaded in the stock cupboards. You can have talented small guys, but they're not good enough for the NHL. What good is that to you? Sorry. That's why you got to start focusing on getting some size with skill. So those five players next year, we might be talking about them, right? Maybe they get a shot up in Montreal and grab it, right? Who knows? In the lower bottom six players. That's what I see. The only guy out of that group, like I said, I see possible top six player could be Mishar because he's got such a high ceiling and his IQ is so high. But he needs insulation, and I don't know if we can translate again. But those five next year we'll talking about differently unless they get a crack in Montreal and they grab it like Waugh did. Same thing, Heineman will fall into that group once again. But I think it'll be his last chance. But with that being said, when we evaluate, I can evaluate these players at best, but it's an over. And this is me being super, super nice. There's an awful lot of C's and D's. It's not even worth me. This forward group is an F. And at best, that's how I have to rate the whole group. Failure. And I'm translating that to, here they were in the AHL, and they couldn't meet the AHL level. I mean, I think, we look at Laval, had they have gotten rid of Strauss-Mann sooner and brought in Kadjik, whatever you call him, as Dobish's backup, I think if that had been done sooner than it was, Laval would be in the playoffs. But that forward group is pathetic. The amount of injuries, they're just a bunch of undersized players. A lot of blown up stats when they were in the juniors that aren't translating even to the AHL level. And like I said, at best you got Geniac, Condata, Simoneau, and Stevens. That might be able to be, and Davidson, that might be able to be fill-ins on the fourth line due to injury. Only injury because they're AHLers. It's not a good scenario. It's a pathetic scenario. And they better get themselves up to 5 veterans on that squad. That's why I say maybe with a guy like Anderson being pushed down there, Josh Anderson, and Harvey Pinard, that would give you 2 veterans. Actually, even Ylonen as well. And Pizzetto. There you go. You got a bunch of forwards right there that could be the forwards brought in to be the leadership in the Laval group. Right? There you go. Get rid of the problems in Montreal. Open the door to what talent is around. And I think right now, while you're waiting for the 5 guys going to Laval next year, it's not going to be until the end of that season. Anything transpires with those 5 probably. You got to bring in somebody in the meantime. in-depth roles and in the top six roles. And that's what Montreal should just focus on for now. You got nothing to reach back to Laval for. There's just nobody's ready. No, unless they really soak it up in the off season and show us something we haven't seen, and they surprise us. There's nothing ready. So to me, Montreal has to make a big splash in the off season of a couple of free agents being signed, and they need at least two top six forwards. They should be wingers, and for the bottom six, I mean, damn, you could go with three or four guys if you wanted to load up on just bottom six players. So you could have about six players that you could juice into Montreal, and the bottom six would be players just to stick in for now. Whereas, and they would buy us a couple years, right? While these five are developing, and then you have whoever comes out of this draft developing as well, and that'll at least minimum be 2 years. So it buys time. But that's what Montreal has to do, because there's nobody coming from Laval up to Montreal at this point. We don't have nothing in the forward group. The only one we have are defense players. Everything's in our defense, and one goaltender with Dobish, who is, hats off to Dobish. He was really the only positive in Laval that I seen. That kid translated. They had such a horrible season up until December, and that kid turned things around and single-handedly played the majority of the games. And the reversal in his game, he is really the only bright spot. He's the whole bright spot on the team that I give an A+ for his turnaround. But this is just a forward group. They get a fail. So thank you for joining me. The next part 3 will be the Habs forwards, because I just couldn't fit it in here. All right, so thank you for joining me. We shall catch you in the 3rd episode. And yeah, we'll keep this serious. It's probably going to be a 6-part series the way this is going. It's not so simple to get it all in one shot. All right, that's your Laval forward group evaluation. It is not good. God bless. Hopefully it gets better. Let's hope we draft right from here on in.